On September 14, 2004, survival expert Bart Schleyer headed to Red Lake in the Yukon region of Canada to hunt with his father. 2 weeks later, he mysteriously disappeared. On October 3rd, a search team found his head near his campsite. His skull had been shattered with immense force, with fragments scattered around. What's strange is that his other remains weren't found. But the most shocking part, people discovered a bizarre photo and a terrifying video on Bart's camera. Bart Schleyer was born in 1955 in the US, in the state of Washington. From a young age, he had a deep interest in animals. At 4, he went hunting in Africa with his dad. By the age of 10, when Bart failed to hunt a black-spotted leopard and cried, his father told him hunting wasn't just about catching animals, it was about connecting with them. Inspired by his dad, Bart focused on wildlife biology and earned a master's degree from Montana State University. He spent 14 years working at the Interdepartmental Grizzly Bear Research Center in Alaska, Montana, and Wyoming. In the 1980s, he worked on the Grizzly Bear Recovery Project in Yellowstone National Park. He was also a top expert in animal live capture techniques. Bart was known to hunt using homemade wooden tools and start fires by drilling wood. He believed this method helped him connect faster with nature. He knew wildlife like the back of his hand, and he was skilled in hunting and surviving in the wild. He was like a shapeshifter, able to conquer the wilderness. Bart also spent much of his time alone in the mountains, writing papers to gain inspiration. But despite being such an experienced survival expert, his life tragically ended in 2004. His death remains a mystery. In September 2004, Bart rented a seaplane and flew alone to the Yukon region on the 14th. He was headed to Red Lake, the largest lake in the region. The area is known for its stunning beauty and abundant wildlife, making it an ideal place for hunting and camping. He brought enough food for 2 weeks and plenty of gear, including a tent, water bottles, inflatable boat, camera, shotgun, and a wooden bow and arrow. By September 30th, Bart's family reported him missing, saying they hadn't heard from him in days. After receiving the alert, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police immediately launched a full-scale search. Near Red Lake, they found Bart's inflatable boat, still in perfect condition. About 60 meters from the boat, in the forest, they discovered his tent and personal items. The tent had collapsed. Nearby, they found his backpack, which contained bear spray, a knife, a camera, and a radio receiver. Not far from the campsite, police found Bart's deerskin quiver and bow. Both the bow and quiver were propped against a tree branch. A little farther ahead, they discovered a blood-stained camouflage mask. On October 3rd, a civilian search team returned to the area for a more detailed sweep. During their search, they found a human skull in a sparse patch of forest. The skull appeared to have been struck with tremendous force, leaving fragments scattered across the ground. Though the skull was disfigured, Bart's family immediately recognized it as his. Strangely, no other part of Bart's body was ever found. Forensic analysis later confirmed the skull belonged to Bart Schleyer. Initially, authorities believed Bart had been killed by a bear, as the area was known to have a large grizzly population. However, they later ruled out a bear attack for several reasons. 1. The skull was found not far from Bart's campsite, yet none of the camp supplies had been disturbed. The food Bart had cooked was still in the pot. If a bear had attacked, it would have raided the camp for food, as bears have an incredible sense of smell. But all the canned goods and other supplies were untouched. 2. The ground where Bart's skull was found showed no signs of struggle. The vegetation and soil were undisturbed. A bear attack would typically leave clear signs, struggles, destruction, and severe damage to the body. But the scene was eerily calm. 3. If a bear had killed Bart, it likely would have buried the body. Bears often store their prey this way, but no such evidence was found. Additionally, the skull showed no bite marks or signs of chewing, which are common in bear attacks. 4. Everyone who knew Bart described him as not only a brilliant zoologist, but also a highly skilled hunter. He had successfully hunted large moose and grizzly bears using handmade wooden tools. Bart was cautious, adaptable, and extremely experienced in wilderness survival. It seemed highly unlikely that he could fall victim to a bear so easily. There were also many puzzling details at the scene. Bart's pants appeared to have been deliberately removed, but they weren't torn or bloodstained. His bow and arrows were found intact, neatly resting against a branch. And most haunting of all, what had crushed Bart's skull, and why? What exactly happened to Bart that day remains a mystery. Authorities described his death as highly unusual, with no explanation that fully made sense. Royal Canadian Mounted Police spokesman Parker stated, "The case remains unsolved. We lean toward the bear attack theory but don't rule out supernatural causes. To this day, Bart Schleier's death is an enigma." Alright, let's break it down, step by step. Bart's death, it's still a mystery. After looking through official reports and discussions from community sites, here's what people think might have happened. The first theory: Bart was killed by a bear, but not on land. Some think it happened in the water. They believe Bart might have been swimming when a grizzly bear ambushed him. This could explain why his pants were neatly placed nearby, and why his bow and backpack were propped up in an easy-to-reach spot. Maybe Bart went for a swim, and the bear struck him there, dragged him to shore, and later, scavengers took care of the rest. But here's the problem. No known animal, except humans, can crush a skull the way Bart's was found. So, this theory, it doesn't hold up entirely. The second idea: maybe Bart died of natural causes. A heart attack, or something else sudden. Now, Bart was 49 years old, and according to reports, he was in top shape. He carried heavy loads, trekked through rough terrains, and he kept fit with intense routines. Hundreds of push-ups and squats were no big deal for him. If he had a health issue, he would have carried medication, right? But nothing like that was found. So, it doesn't seem likely either. And then, there's the third theory. Some say Bart encountered something, not human. Maybe it was a Wendigo. Now, the Wendigo. It's a creature from Canadian folklore, a terrifying humanoid monster, known for its strength and appetite for human flesh. And when it's near, they say there's a terrible stench. Now, of course, there's no real proof that it exists. But the stories, they've been around for centuries. And the Wendigo, it's oddly similar to another legend: Bigfoot, humanoid, huge, and foul-smelling. Here's the thing. Some claim Bart's camera had strange photos and videos. One photo, it supposedly showed footprints by the lake, not Bart's footprints, but without anything to compare it to. The size of the prints, it's unclear. And the video, it was just a few seconds long, but in it, a tall, black, humanoid figure appeared near Bart's campsite. It moved briefly, and then disappeared into the forest. Now, the Yukon region, where all this happened, it's remote, wild, untouched. and close to British Columbia and Alberta, which they're hotspots for Bigfoot sightings. Some hunters even claim they've captured high-quality footage of Bigfoot in these areas. And there's a story about another body found under similar circumstances. Like Bart's, this person's head was crushed and left on a log. When you put it all together, it's hard not to wonder, did Bart encounter something unnatural? Something we can't explain? We may never know. In the remote, high-altitude regions of Canada's northwest, legends speak of the elusive Sasquatch. Covered in dense hair, mostly black, sometimes reddish-browned, these creatures have long haunted the edges of human imagination. Some accounts suggest they're omnivorous. Others say they're masterful at hiding. And while humans fear them, it's said they fear us even more. But when provoked, they're a different story. With an estimated weight of 500 pounds, a Sasquatch could easily twist off a human head and crush it. In times of food scarcity, a lone human might even become prey. Bart Schleyer, though, he wasn't just anyone. He knew the wilderness. He knew grizzlies. He carried a rifle, a bow. He was prepared. But Bigfoot, that was something else entirely. Could it be that, hidden among the snowy peaks, something had been watching him, waiting? Of course, this is just speculation. Bart might have died from something else entirely. Those who knew him describe him as kind, generous, and full of humor. He was a man who saw the best in everyone. Despite his adventurous life, he lived simply. No possessions, no wealth. He gave everything to nature. His time, his love, his very soul. Maybe, just maybe, his death was fate. A man so deeply connected to the wild, in the end, became part of it. Somewhere in the vast, silent Yukon, Bart Schleyer's remains lie, hidden, untouched. And as the years pass, with the snow, the wind, and the time, he will return to the wilderness he loved so much,